Right. So we're back at the very end of chapter 11, course of the Gita. And if you've obviously been around the past few weeks, then we know what's happened. Arjuna has received a mystical experience. It was almost like a spell were cast. That's the thing that is so interesting, not just about this chapter in the Gita, but throughout the Gita in general, not just through the Gita, but through the Mahabharata itself. So we don't have that privilege. Of course, this is all allegorical. And, of course, most commentators, scholars, believe that it is a discussion with his inner Atman, right? His inner true self. And that's something we always have to kind of keep in mind. Now, again, this experience that he's had through chapter 11 is more or less like a spell that had been cast by Krishna onto Arjuna, and therefore he received that mystical experience. We're not, again, kind of like open to this. We're not available. No, maybe I shouldn't frame it this way. I was about to say we're not available to God in this way, but I suppose we are. We're just to make ourselves available, I suppose. Which, of course, we get into in chapter 12, interestingly enough. So this spell that has been cast, if you will, is not necessarily something that it's not a spell that is being cast by another as much as it is through the process of the practice of yoga in all of its forms, right? Karma yoga, action and selfless service, through jnana yoga, that of like acquiring knowledge, and in bhakti, in devotion. Right? These different forms allow us to cast that spell onto ourselves after we've become kind of fit students, if you will, right? After we've been through it, after we've, practiced a lot and have had the experiences and gone through, maybe ups and downs along the way. So let me just start with some passages here, right? So we've left off with 50. My mind is again composed and returned to normal. So, what's being said here is that we should almost expect the deep spiritual experience to be surprising, to be, as Krishna had described it, as kind of terrifying. I don't know if terrifying is the best word to use, but certainly very different of an experience, right? Something obviously outside the realm of what we're typically used to, right? How we consume our world through our senses is, right, those rules all fall away. So now we're working with a different set of equipment, right? The transcendent mind is not one that is like even based in logic, right? That's jnana yoga. That's for the realm of jnana yoga. We've transcended in many ways the three yogas. We can't reason our way there. We can't wish ourselves there. Right? There has to be a calmness, a softness, what's the word I'm looking for? There is a word that just fits so perfect, but I don't know what it is. Good morning, people. Right, there's again a softness and openness. That's not the word, but an openness, right? That has to be, kind of part of us, right? Beyond the mind, right? That's beyond the mind. Oh, thank you so much, Cheryl. Receptive, yes. Nailed it, Cheryl. Nailed it. Thank you. Receptiveness, right? That kind of, it's like the key. Oh gosh, I cannot wait to get to this, hopefully to get to this poem today. The key to the door that we're maybe not even familiar with, that door, that opening just yet. So in this respect, yeah, and maybe who've kind of reached that transcendent state. It's not terrifying. It's not. Is it abnormal? Yeah, like I said, we can't use the tools that we're used to navigating this lower reality, right? Is largely of the sense perceptions, the sense organs. Anyway, Krishna goes on in 52. It is extremely difficult to obtain the vision you have had. Even the gods long always to see me in this aspect. Neither knowledge of the Vedas, nor austerity, nor charity, nor sacrifice can bring the vision you have seen. Right. So in that 53rd passage, not through karma yoga, not through jnana yoga, right? We can't really get there that way. Yes, do those two forms of yoga get us to a place, provide us the requisite, mental discipline to even get to this next phase? Yes, right? You can't skip over karma yoga and jnana yoga. It's not allowed. Well, I shouldn't say it's not allowed, but as in the Yoga Sutra, Chapter 1, Sutra 30, a most important obstacle, of course, is not having established a firm footing. Maybe the experience of jumping ahead, of not having gone through, the trials that karma yoga and jnana yoga present to us, and maybe instead kind of jumping to bhakti, and again, I say maybe, jumping to that devotional practice of yoga, that maybe the mind is not prepared to fully realize what it might then be exposed to through the practice of meditation and yoga. And one might become terrified, uneasy, because we have not established a firm footing, right? Maybe that firm footing, and again, I say maybe, these are just my thoughts rifting, right? Maybe those prerequisites for this final stage, for our own chapter 11, right, is chapters 3, 4, 5, and 6, right, of jnana yoga and karma yoga. Right? So the Gita is set up in such a way, right? You've got to pass through these chapters, but you can't simply read the Gita in, you can read the Gita in less than an hour, right? But you can't simply get to that transcendent state. You can't simply be revealed Brahman in less than an hour. And maybe if you attempt, you might become terrified, right? Because you haven't fully gone through the trials that karma yoga and jnana yoga present. Now in 54, but through unfailing devotion, right? Bhakti. But through unfailing devotion, Arjuna, you can know me, see me, and attain union with me. And let me reflect on this passage just for a moment, because one thing that I find so important is that of, let's look at the Vedas, for instance. Let's look at, the teachings, let's say, in Matthew. And, never mind. My biblical knowledge is not, certainly not. I certainly can't bring things up from the Bible in the best way. So separating ritual, like the first three parts of the Vedas are all about karma yoga, the rituals the ceremonies that one goes through, right? But the final part, which, we could see it as jnana yoga, but so often describes, of course, bhakti, that of devotion. So when we think about, from my Catholic background, right, you go to church, you've got these rituals, right? You've got pomp and circumstance and all that stuff, right? You've got the incense and the candles and the prayers and the music and so on and so forth. And, what is that? Maybe if we were to speculate, maybe a bit too much, a consequence of studying yoga very deeply is judgment, right? So in this case, placing judgment on those who might regularly attend church. And this, of course, is not limited to just church or temple, or might also be in the case of myself, right, through the practice of yoga, is that, the ritual itself replaces the highest goal of spirituality. I can attend an hour of service, of mass, of temple and prayers to replace that highest goal of transcendence. So we can actually take it out. I mean, not that you could take out prayer necessarily, because it's a meditative act for so many, right? So, but maybe removing the ritual really isn't required, right? That is just a part of an organization that one can feel tied to, feel welcomed into a family outside of their typical family. Right? And of course, in doing so, they feel accepted, feel part of a bigger thing. Of course, that bigger thing, in this case, we'll use the language of the Gita, Brahman, right? And we'll again see in chapter 12, how that, and as we have seen in the past as well, right? The Atman is but the seed of Brahman. Okay. 54, but through unfailing devotion, Arjuna, you can know me, see me, and attain union with me. 55, those who make me the supreme goal of all their work and act without selfish attachment, who devote themselves to me completely and are free from ill will for any creature, enter into me. So all of a sudden, Krishna is like, let's recap things real quick. In this final passage, those who make me the supreme goal of all their work, karma, and act without selfish attachment, karma, or in this case, the first, karma yoga, and then which would ultimately be in Swami Vivekananda's 4 yogas, Raja Yoga, which is kind of a part of karma yoga. Who devote themselves to me completely, right? Devotion, of course, bhakti yoga, and are free from ill will for any creature, enter into me. The path is clear, right? The 3 yogas, that's the path. That's what we're trying to use. They're the tools that we use to get to that transcendent state. And I love the fact that, it ends this way. I really wish I had kind of brushed up on another translation, because I think the translation, obviously, right? Translations vary all the time. But I recall a slight variation, the end of chapter 11 in another translation I've read in the past. But nonetheless, the way it ends here is so great. Devote themselves to me completely and are free from ill will for any creature, enter into me. It's as if, like this idea of kindness is like integral to not just achieving that state, right? Achieving the state that, it is, right? Of course, achieving that state that Arjuna has now realized in chapter 11. But also how critical it is to be in that pleasantness, that friendliness, that friendly-like state, just to operate in this lower reality as well. Right? It's as if we can't simply, kind of go back and forth. It's a requirement of the student of yoga is to be kind, right? To be nice, to be, right? To not have, to be free from ill will for any creature. Right? Imagine if you're being a jerk, right? If you're being a jerk, your ability to get there, it's impossible. Right? It's not possible for us to go beyond this, kind of lower reality. There's still lots of work to be done there. It's always interesting to contemplate what it takes for, that classic jerk pose and so on to kind of overcome their typical behaviors and to, kind of realize that they're, that, being a nice person goes a long way. Goes a really long way, a longer way than one might mostly kind of think, right? It's not about achieving status or something in this lower reality, but instead, an ability to learn how to love. All right. It's kind of going from cold, right, to warm. And maybe I won't use the word hot necessarily because it gives me, there's other impressions in that word. So by going from like cold to warm, right? The cold-hearted to the warm-hearted. And what a great way, I think like is, practicing yogis, one thing that we always have to remind ourselves, I have to remind myself of it, right? Even if I were to base it off, right? If like I curse a lot, like I try to, when I'm around my daughter, when I'm around, but like I'm at work, things aren't going my way, I'm like, I get mad, I curse. Usually it's not towards a living thing, but it's towards, I guess it's towards myself, which is a living thing, right? Because I've made a mistake, I got to go back and I got to fix it. And I suppose that is a good lesson as well, right? Because no ill will towards any living creature. I guess we're living, and therefore, we've got to show a lot of kindness towards ourselves as well. All right. So now, the next few minutes, I do want to discuss chapter 12. What I'm going to do is read through a point that I want to reflect on. And I did this in a talk on Friday, and I love it so much. Omar Khayyam's quatrain, this beautiful poem from the 11th century. So, but I want to preface it with the beginning of chapter 12. Arjuna begins in the first passage, of those steadfast devotees who love you and those who seek you as the eternal formless reality, who are the more established in yoga? And then Krishna answers the question, those who set their hearts on me and worship me with unfailing devotion and faith are more established in yoga. And this I could probably end here, but the third passage, as for those who seek the transcendental reality, without name, without form, contemplating the unmanifested, beyond the reach of thought and of feeling, with their senses subdued and mind serene, and striving for the good of all beings, they too will verily come unto me. Right? So there's a lot of lessons here, which we're going to reflect on next week. But I wanted to get things kind of kicked off there because I do want to, hopefully I have it up somewhere. Here we are. So this is from, let me see, it's called the Rubaiyat, which is essentially a translation of a quatrain by Omar Khayyam, again, 11th century Persian astronomer, mathematician, and it is believed that this poem, this poem is attributed to him as well. But there seems to be some debate about that. And here I'm going to begin at 20. Oh, you know what? Let me go here instead, so I have it listed well. Passage 27, or the 27th quatrain. Myself, when young, did eagerly frequent doctor and saint, and heard great argument about it and about, but evermore. Came out by the same door wherein I went. All right, and in the 28th quatrain, with them the seed of wisdom did I sow, and with mine own hand wrought to make it grow. And this was all the harvest that I reaped. I came like water, and like wind I go. Right, 29th, into this universe, and why not knowing, nor whence, like water willy-nilly flowing, and out of it, as wind along the waste, I know not whither willy-nilly blowing. 30th, what without asking, hither hurried whence, and without asking, whither hurried hence? Oh, many a cup of this forbidden wine must drown the memory of that insolence. 31, up from earth's center through the seventh gate, rose and on the throne of Saturn sate, and many a knot unraveled by the road, but not the master knot of human fate. 32, there was the door to which I found no key. There was the veil through which I might not see. Some little talk a while of me and thee. There was, and then no more of thee and me. All right, there's a few other things, a few more quatrains I'd love to get to, but I only have but a few minutes. So it begins. Myself, when young, did eagerly frequent doctor and saint, and heard great argument about it and about, but evermore came out by the same door wherein I went. So this is my commentary, of course. The doctor and the saint. The doctor, I want to say, represents the jnani yogi, right? The path of knowledge, right? And the saint, that of devotion. And in the talk I gave on Friday, and it's on YouTube, I bring this up as well. It reminds me of Zen koan that is all about borrowed light, right? Here we're having this discussion, hopefully there's some knowledge being passed along, but the knowledge is limited, right? You can only read so much, right? You can only listen to things so much. But at some point, the saint, you've got to put in the work, right? You can't simply read about devotion. Can't simply read about jnana and karma, right? The steps that one takes to get to that stable place, readies the mind for a faithful practice. You've got to practice it yourself. You've got to experience it yourself. You can't borrow the light of a transcendent being, a transcendent practitioner of yoga, but instead you got to do it yourself. You got to put the work in. Right, then he goes on, with them the seed of wisdom did I sow, and with mine own hand wrought to make it grow. So, right, putting in their own work. And this was all the harvest that I reaped. I came like water, and like wind I go. Ugh, gaga. Water, there's a few things that come to mind when I think about water. And I had brought up the Tao quite a bit in that talk from Friday, and in the Tao, the Tao Te Ching, right? The water, the ocean is the mother of all things, right? It's like the source. It is almost you can almost equate it to Brahman. It's the unmanifest. And this idea, like wind I go. There's a few things that kind of come to mind here, and that is one, the idea of letting go, right? Even when, the end of our physical, like the chain of karma is broken through this ultimate detachment of letting go of the physical body. Even when we're exploring our own not morality, but mortality. And like wind, I go, but also like this state of mind, right? The emptiness, right? Airiness is kind of a weird words to use there. There is like this odd benefit of having, ignorance is bliss as a rule of thumb, right? Not being so ignorant that we become ignorant people, but allowing the mind to move in a state of like deep clarity where that reasoning, right, that rumination it's gone, right, and the mind becomes clear and pleasant. Okay. And okay, last one. Into this universe, this is the 29th, into this universe, and why not knowing, no, let me go to, this is 30. I'm going to read it as it's written, and I'm going to read it without the antiquated words. Okay, so it says, what, without asking, hither, hurried whence, and without asking, whither, hurried hence. Oh, many a cup of this forbidden wine must drown the memory of that insolence. So let me reread it. All right. What, without asking, here, hurried from what place? And without asking, to what place hurried in the future? So it's like, this passage is like super cool because it's like, where are you rushing from and where are you rushing to? Right? I'm rereading Stumbling on Happiness by Daniel Gilbert, which is a great book. So it's all about the science of happy, right? A lot of psychology and neurobiology and stuff like that. And it's, he goes at length in this first part of the book about our frontal lobes, right? Our ability to remember the past and project into the future, and how much of a hindrance it is in being happy people. And this passage is like, why are we rushing from this place only to get to another place that we're attempting to rush towards? Why not just be here now, as the great Ram Dass has said in the past, right? Be here, right? Deal with what's going on right now. And what a great rule to have when we're in that state of meditation, because all too often when the mind's turnings activate, it is about what's happening next or what just happened. What do I have to do? What are the things that I need to reflect on? How unfortunate, right? Instead, right there in the moment. Okay. I better end it there. I do hope you enjoyed the talk. All right. Everybody have a wonderful day today. Enjoy yourselves and be safe. And yeah, continue to be